What a way to start a morning. Welcome to Candy Adventures. I'm Chris.
And I'm Elizabeth.
And today we're located here in beautiful Cades Cove Campground, which is part of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park on the Tennessee side, to tell you a story about a missing child from 1969 who went missing just at the base of this mountain where this campground is.
And his name is Dennis Martin.
Little Dennis Martin, when he went missing in 1969, what this story has so encaptured people's attention is because nobody ever found Dennis Martin. Nobody ever found any evidence. There's a lot of suspicious activity in this story, and it brings up a lot of cryptid talk and even Bigfoot talk, wild men of the Appalachians talk. And so we're going to go explore some of the areas and try to tell his story in the best way we can.
And today we have a special guest joining us. Dennis Martin's search actually involved Green Berets, and we have a friend and one of our own Green Berets coming to join us today as a cameraman.
All right, as soon as he gets here, we're going to get up on these mountains and we're going to do a hike, which I'm not looking forward to, which I didn't realize until we got here this morning, is 3,000 feet of elevation gain. And our time window with our Green Beret means we're going to have to do this in about 2 hours of vertical ascent. All right, we're ready, we're packed up. There's actually a bear in that tree right there, which is super cool. But our Green Beret informant is here, so I've got to pretend like I'm a little bit taller, and I'm gonna go ahead and give this guy a real strong handshake to prove my worthiness. Can't let him see the weakness. Just take it. Just help me. Just hold me, but not too much. Hold me. Don't film it. It's in there, but I can't let him see it. I can do this. It's just so heavy, you know what I mean? It's just like a heavy backpack. I'm cool today too, by default. It's like Joe Rogan. You hang out with people like this and you become cool too. So he doesn't really want to be on camera today. So I thought maybe he could be our replacement Shiho and be the camera operator for us.
Oh, gee, thanks.
All right, let's go see if we can all do this trail. It's gonna be about 10 miles round trip, and the sun's starting to go down because we procrastinated a little bit. So let's get up in the woods and tell this story. We just escaped the hordes of human beings that live now in and amongst the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. If you've ever been here, it's one of, if not the busiest, one of the busiest national parks on planet Earth.
And specifically where we are camping, Cades Cove, is the busiest place within the busiest park.
But we've escaped it, and we found ourselves onto this old road that used to be a road used for cattle driving, when they used to drive the cattle out of the valleys down here, and they would go up onto the tops of the mountain balds, which is a field, and let their cattle graze.
So about in 1945, the state considered this a historical site, historical area, but the Martin family was actually one of those families tied to the cattle drives. Now they were here in 1969 because it was a tradition to still keep walking these trails every year, even though they weren't driving cattle anymore. So the story starts off with William Martin, which is the father. He brought his two sons, Doug and Dennis, with him for their first family camping trip.
And where they were headed to is Spencefield, which was a high mountain bald where they would take their cattle to graze, and they were headed up there to do some camping, and that's where we're headed today. And it's going to be, I think I read it's like 3,000 feet of elevation change. And it's 5 miles up and then turn around 5 miles back. So this is going to be badass on my 28-year-old heart to see if I can accomplish this task today.
And I don't think our buddy knew that he was signing up for this today. So.
But I will walk until my lips turn blue so I don't look like a coward in front of our Green Beret cameraman, because I won't be done like that on the internet. So.
Chris, the bridge is...
Don't show it in the frame. Don't. Okay, so we've made it up here today. We were not expecting this. This is about 3,000 feet of elevation gain, and we're doing this all in one take. So it's just been a slog. We have our Green Beret with us, who doesn't like our rest breaks and our pizza combo breaks that we like to take, and he's really pushed us. This has become an event, a selection level event is what this has become. And in all seriousness, what it makes me think of is the amount of physical exertion needed to walk around up here. I mean, it's sheer, it's vertical walking up these switchbacks, and if you're off the switchbacks, it's really steep. It really gives me an appreciation and a respect for a kid that you know, Dennis Martin, if you're still out there or if you're up here, whichever way it may work out, the fact that you at 6 years old could walk up this, you're a little warrior. But whatever happened, wherever you are, you're a little warrior. So if you're watching this video from wherever, upstairs or down here with us, very impressive, my friend. You're a very impressive little kid. And to think of you being lost up here, how steep it is, it's getting dark. I can't imagine how terrifying that was. And it really puts this into perspective of what this was
like at that time too. And then so right here, this is the Appalachian Trail, and it's only 0.2 miles to the actual field where Dennis was missing.
So we're gonna head on up 0.2 more miles to Spence Field and check that area out. So this is where Dennis Martin went missing. In 1969. This would have been more of a field back then. This has grown up, but this used to be a field partly because they brought cows up here to eat, to graze, and then since it became a national park, that didn't happen anymore. So by 1969, it was probably grown up a little bit, but Dennis Martin was somewhere in here, went behind a bush, and was never seen again. And it's kind of an eerie experience coming up here, and it's almost the exact same time of day he went missing. It's getting ready to be a big rainstorm, rain all day tomorrow.
Yeah, so it's like coincidental that we're kind of in similar conditions to when he went missing on June 14th, 1969. But they had met another family up here that also had kids, so they were just playing hide and seek. And they knew that the kids were hiding, and they just kept waiting for Dennis Martin to pop back out, and he just didn't. And so his father started getting concerned after about 3 to 5 minutes of Dennis not popping back out. And he ran a mile from where we just came down that trail, you know, calling his name, trying to find him. And then once he got to about a mile, he was like, no, for sure, when I return, they found him, it'll be fine. Ran all the way back, and they hadn't seen him. So then he ran all the way back down from where we started, which was, you know, 5-6 miles at that time, to go notify park rangers that his son had been missing.
And while that was going on, it was starting to be a rainstorm, and people were taking shelter that were in the family group up here while they're trying to figure out what's going on. So we're gonna go check this shelter out and see if anybody's camping in there tonight, just to look around. So within the next day of Dennis Martin going missing, this was a big field, and they had actually landed the U.S. Army Special Forces up here within the next day looking for Dennis Martin. So it's all the more baffling. You have people reacting quickly, father reacting quickly, the family reacting quickly, the U.S. Army with helicopters landing up here before all these trees grew here, and still 1,400 people searching, and little Dennis Martin I still never find. But we're going to get back down the mountain and continue investigating some of the other sites where Dennis Martin was seen or heard, or some suspicious activity took place. So let's get back down there. So as a veteran Green Beret of 16 years, in your experience, how many times have you been called out by the government to go look for a missing persons?
Never.
Never.
No. Which is why it's interesting that there were Green Berets here. Yeah, I've definitely never heard of that before. I'm not sure if, and they were here so quickly. The very next day they were here for the search efforts. So.
That blows my mind. I think you were telling me that they used to train on this side of the state, right?
Yeah, so my guess is they were probably here for some type of training event, because They used to do training here around the Smokies. And now it's moved more to the east, more around the Uwharrie. And I don't know that they do training here around the Smokies anymore.
I wonder if you have a giant manhunt like that and it doesn't end successfully, or maybe it did and there's stuff we don't know. I wonder if that could have had something to do. I know you're not going to tell me that, but I like to pontificate that and look at you while I ask that question.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it for sure. Especially because it was 50 years ago. I never even knew the Green Berets were involved with it until looking into it.
Really? Okay, that's the other thing I was going to ask, is if in any of your training stuff that you guys go through, if they ever brought this up. Or...
Never.
Really?
Never heard of that.
I find that fascinating. Just a few years ago, while we were both still game wardens, which was a very short-lived experience for both of us, but a woman went missing up here in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
Not too far from here, actually.
And it was the same kind of deal. She got lost on top of a mountain on Klingman's Dome, and she had walked off of Klingman's Dome. I believe she was with her daughter, and there was a lot of other hikers in the area, and that area is riddled with trails and it's well marked, just like this area. And she walked away, and she just disappeared, just like Dennis Martin. And they brought out, again, searchers, and the helicopters came out, and this time the helicopters had FLIR.
What we're seeing here is what appears to be a person in a prone position.
And they had thermal imaging. Never found the lady. A week later, they found her face down in a creek, and they thought she died of hypothermia in the summer. How do you not find a woman who she wasn't even that far from where she got lost?
She was 3/4 of a mile off of any trail. She was in like a thick patch of rhododendron. They don't know how she ended up there, but she was on a marked trail with her daughter when she was lost.
The dogs couldn't pick up scent. The helicopters couldn't find her. How did that happen? When you get lost in that area, all you have to do is walk uphill at Klingman's Dome and you're back to a paved road in a parking lot. She walked the wrong direction and kept walking the wrong direction. And the thing I've thought about, since we just spent 3 years living in Guam, is that if you spend enough time around locals in Guam, they'll tell you, if you go into the woods and you don't say your Guelo and Guelus, you don't ask for permission when you go into the woods, you'll get turned around. And I've had more locals there than I can count tell me that they'll go into the woods in a place they've been a million times and get lost. And they'll say that it's like you keep feeling like you should go a other direction and you keep walking in circles. And I've had more locals tell me that. And so sometimes I wonder, the world's not so different everywhere you go. Is there something weird happening there where people keep getting lost in well-marked places with their family everywhere and they're just walking in circles?
Things where there's no evidence of their disappearance, there's no footprints or like any sign of them getting lost or anything.
And confident hikers who've been in this area before, just like in Guam, confident people who've been out in those places before will be hunting or fishing or hiking in a place and just get turned around in a place they grew up in and cannot seem to find their way back to the trail, and it's almost like something's guiding you astray. And I think there's a lot of myths. The Philippines, they have the myths with the Duendes, where there's tiny people in the forest and they'll kind of get in your head and guide you astray and make you lost. It's all over the world. It kind of has similar stories, and I kind of wonder about these people going missing here too. It's a lot of that stuff kind of lines up. Is there something else at play that leads people astray, which we cannot explain?
Yeah.
Come on. All right. We're gonna get full woo-woo. So right after little Dennis Martin went missing, there was a big rainstorm. And as you can see all the water crossings we've done, you can think how treacherous it would be to be a little boy lost in the rain, if that's what happened, and how you could easily get swept up in one of these mountain streams. When it rains really hard, these mountain streams grow in volume really quickly because it's such a deep angle that all the water is really Venturi affected through these narrow slots in the rocks. And you can see where a little boy trying to maybe jump across one of these slippery rocks might slip and possibly bump his head or get hurt or turned around, or maybe not want to cross the river and go the other way. So this is winter time. This is just after Thanksgiving, before Christmas, and so some of the leaves have fallen off the field, but you can still see how dense this tunnel of rhododendron is. I mean, it's almost impenetrable. You get snagged up trying to walk through this stuff and you can't see through it at all. So down this tunnel of rhododendron is where 4 days later a one-shoed footprint was found.
So 4 days into the search, they had moved approximately 3 miles from where they last had seen Dennis. And that's where they found the footprint.
They come along and they found a footprint of a little Oxford shoe in the mud. And one of them took a stick and broke it and measured the length of it and the width of the heel. And he said it was of a little boy.
And it was the approximate size of a child. And the interesting thing about this is there were a lot of searchers out here, approximately 1,400 people. None of them were children. So some people believe that that was a footprint of Dennis.
So some years later, there was a man up here illegally harvesting ginseng, and he was hunting for it off the trail. And right down this trail, off the path, he found what he reported was the skeleton of a human child. Now, he kept this to himself because harvesting ginseng is illegal.
Now, while it is legal to harvest ginseng on your own property, collecting any portion of the plant from someone else's property without written permission or going on federal or state-owned property to harvest the plant is illegal.
And he didn't want to get in trouble, which is to me, that's a baffling moral conundrum to not want a small ticket. And I say this because this story kind of ties in. For us, we used to be game wardens. And you can see in this photo here, me writing a ticket of someone in this same region illegally digging ginseng. And those are not huge fines. So to not report a missing human child and keep that information for years, by the time he finally reported that information, they couldn't find the skeleton.
Yeah, they sent 30 searchers to the area where he kind of remembered where he thought he saw the skeleton, and they couldn't find anything.
So I find that kind of sad and a little bit morally baffling.
So approximately a week later, or a couple weeks later, after they found the shoe print, there was someone hiking in this area, and he said that he smelled something really bad. And he was familiar with the smell of dead animals like deer or bear or things that have passed away in the woods naturally. And he said that this smelled different. And he actually called the park rangers and reported this smell. And it happens to be in the same area where the footprint was. And the park rangers said that it was probably a dead crow and nothing to worry about. And the guy insisted, no, it's not a dead crow. I've smelled, dead animals before. This is different. But the park rangers just told him to leave it alone and not to worry about it.
I think that's the same information that they kept from the Martin family.
That's part of the failure of things, is not recognizing reasonable assumptions, about how far someone can travel.
Yeah, so
They never told him that.
the Martin family, especially William Martin, he stayed in this region the whole time throughout the search, and then would come back years later, including the grandfather, Clyde. They would continuously come back to this area, but they had an agreement with the Park Service and the FBI to disclose any information related to the case. He started finding out that they were withholding information.
And then a few years after this happened, the FBI agent that knew all these facts that never got related to the Martin family committed suicide. And they wonder if part of this suicide is because the same FBI agent was not only involved in this case, in which there was evidence being withheld, but a few other missing persons cases where there was evidence withheld. And so the speculation is that this FBI agent might have had guilt and was the reason for the suicide. We don't know that for sure,
No.
but it's just one more confusing part of this story.
Because this case remains unsolved, so you have all of these different components that are coming out at various times that, might be connected, might not, might be coincidence. There's not really a way to know.
We're gonna get back down the mountain and see if we can get a cold beer and kind of relax and think about today, and see you guys in the morning.
For one of the other locations that's relevant to the story.
Yep. All right, so we made it back to the truck camper. It is starting to get cold. We were covered in sweat, and that started to get chilly as we came back down the mountain. The 3,000 foot elevation gain made that 10-mile hike a lot longer, but to make it better, we have some top ramen bowls here, and we got our little pot on the boil. And then because we're not basic, and people are always telling us the white people don't like spice, we're spicing it up a little bit with Prairie Belt.
Explain what that is.
I don't know, but I just was trying to make the case that white people like different things, and I just showed them a picture of a can that says Prairie Belt and has a picture of a little white boy on it. But we're going to be having some Prairie Belt, which is a competitor to Armour's Vienna sausage product.
Oh, hi. Oh, hi, Bean Babe.
And then, so that it's legit, we use chopsticks. And also the reason we eat like this is because nothing has to be cleaned. These are disposable. They can be burned in the fire. The pot only has boiling water. That doesn't have to be washed. And then these paper things just go into the trash when you're done. Which is also handy about cooking like in a place like this is there's a lot of bears in this campground. There was a bear in the tree when we pulled up here today. They're all over the place. So it's nice to, there's no smell in your vehicle. We immediately take the trash, dump it in the bear safe containers, and you're good to go. So
amazing picture of the rose.
proportionally, like as human beings, I would say this would be the food that would bring the most amount of people together. Asians are the predominant species, not species, are the predominant race on planet Earth. And they invented this, and everywhere I've ever been in Asia, at least one meal a day, this seems to appear.
The instant noodles specifically?
Yeah, instant noodles. And then I've eaten them in Southeast Asia. I would say, I'm going to put my money down that this is the most unifying food product on planet Earth is instant noodles. I've never met someone who doesn't like them. The pickiest eaters in the world loves this.
That's true. They might not add any of the stuff to the packets or anything like that, but they'll eat the noodles.
Yeah. So I will go ahead and say, if you also have eaten or enjoy eating instant noodles, why don't you go ahead and hit that like button.
Leave a comment.
Leave a comment.
What do you like to add to your noodles?
You could even buy some Candy Adventures merch if you would like to. You don't have to, but just sticking around watching the rest of the video is enough for us. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning when we wake up bright and early to finish our investigation and telling our story. Yeah, well, we're enjoying having our morning oatmeal coffee. Pretty little buck just showed up, so good way to start the day for our video. And it's going to give Mona a panic attack. She likes to chase deer, but not in a national park.
Good morning. We are here outside, and it looks like everybody has cleared out. Last night there was a storm that rolled through, and they had 60-mile-per-hour gusts, and a lot of people actually left last night, but it's kind of strange because the night that Dennis went missing, there was a huge thunderstorm that rolled through, and it reduced a lot of the ability to search for him the same day that he went missing, and people could only come out the next morning. So we did bring Mona for this video, but in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, there's only 2 trails in the whole park where you can actually have dogs on the trail. So if you bring a dog to this area, just know that most likely the dog can't come hiking with you. So she had to stay at base camp for our hike yesterday, but she'll be able to ride with us today since the other location we're going to is just off the road.
All right, so we're gonna leave this beautifully apocalyptic looking campground this morning, and we're gonna head to Rowan's Creek, which is just up the hill from here. And it's another place where there are some odd incidences that surround Dennis Martin's disappearance. And we're gonna go there and tell that story. So follow us along, and hopefully we don't have to do 3,000 feet of elevation gain again today.
Okay, the top is down. Just gotta secure the latches and we are ready to go. Easy peasy. You wanna go for a ride? Go for a ride.
So we made it to Rowan's Creek. We had a hard time figuring out exactly where this sighting was supposed to have happened, but this is Rowan's Creek. This is the closest place we can find where it gets to a road.
Yeah. So basically what happened was Dennis Martin went missing at approximately 4:30 p.m. on June 14th. And it wasn't until days later, William Martin, the father, found out that there was something that happened on that same day in this area, and he wasn't told about it until days later, and he was very upset that no one ever relayed this information. So there was a family over here in this area that was hiking, and they said that they saw something. There's reports that say the kids thought it was a bear, and the father of this family said that he said it was a man walking through the woods.
And the thing that they all had in common in the family was they all heard a really loud scream. There was even another man that reported in the same time that in that same area, that he also heard a really loud, like blood-curdling scream.
Decades later, they interviewed this same man that said that he saw a man walking through the woods, and he said that they never reported it in any of the newspaper articles, but he had told them that he thought the man that he saw walking through the woods was carrying something over his shoulder.
And that gets into that's where you start getting into the myth of like the Appalachian wild man. There was supposed to have been a few people living back in the Appalachian Mountains at that time in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park that were homeless, basically residing inside the park. Mm-hmm. But at the specific time of the disappearance, there was only one man known, and he lived over in Cataloochee Valley, which is a pretty long distance from here, so that he wouldn't have been in the same area.
Yep. But this area was about 7 miles from where Dennis Martin disappeared. And the reason that the park rangers and the FBI didn't relay this information to William Martin is because they said that it wasn't possible for it to have occurred. You know, they couldn't have been related because of the time.
From where we're standing, it's all downhill.
Yes.
So directly behind your shoulders, directly behind the camera, up that mountain, is where he went missing. So it would have been 7 miles, but all downhill. And there's a trail. The trail doesn't come out on this road, but it gets really close to this road. So 7 miles downhill is nowhere near as bad than what we did yesterday, which was that distance uphill.
Yes.
Completely different. So I think it's 100% possible somebody could have made it to this point, especially under the panic of you're trying to abduct a kid.
Well, Dennis's father and one other gentleman did this exact same walk, and they made it in 90 minutes.
So it's 100% plausible that somebody could have popped out here. And then there's reports that there was a white car that sped off about the same time. You've got a lot of evidence that never made it to the official investigation. And why was it left out? Who knows?
Yeah.
And then you have the FBI agent that was taking this information, committing suicide. It's a really complex story, and I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of it. And right across the street here, we'll go look at it. We'll show you, even here in the wintertime, it's December, how dense it still is. A lot of this is evergreen. Now, that might have been different then, but it would have been very dense in the summer. And we'll go look and see how hard it would be to see someone over here.
So Chris is our feral man. And they said that they weren't close. And the scream, they couldn't exactly pinpoint where it came from, just a general direction. So it wasn't super close to these people that had this sighting or this experience. Yeah, I mean, I can barely see your black shirt. The only thing that really pops out is your white hat.
And you can see how if you didn't want to be seen, just staying low behind these small pine trees, which is what was reported that the man was doing, trying not to be seen, how easy it would be to confuse a man hiding back here from the road with a bear or someone with something over their shoulder, how easy it would be. And then just trying to get to that escape route, which would be the road right behind Elizabeth walking towards me, to get to your car and screech away. I believe that would be completely plausible for anyone. Even these cars driving by on Cades Cove Road, they keep slowing down because they see me in the woods, and I think they think I'm a bear. So even more plausibility to the story there.
Also in the winter, you have to keep in mind all these dead leaves and stuff make so much noise when you're moving through, but in the summer you're not going to have that much noise either.
But to have report of a man hiding in the woods just a few miles away from a disappearance of a young boy, and that not get reported, and become part of the official investigation, and you get pushed off the site is baffling to me.
Yes. What's interesting is this area is on the complete opposite side of where they had found the footprint, where the smell was reported, and the child skeleton from the ginseng poacher. So you almost have two different trains of where Dennis Martin could have gone, you know, east or west of where he disappeared.
And you've also, it could be that Dennis Martin might never have made it out of that area of Spence Field. That same man could have killed him and then ran alone all the way back down here to this parking lot, trying to escape, and then he's hiding from people in the bushes and running around, didn't want to be seen, and then he leaves. So maybe Dennis Martin's body could still be up there where the skeletal report was, and then that guy may have left that same day.
Yeah, so there's just infinite possibilities, and that's why it remains unsolved to this day.
All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for us today here with the story of Dennis Martin and his disappearance.
So we appreciate you joining us, and for our Green Beret cameraman helping us out yesterday and talking a little bit about his experience with Green Berets responding to situations like this.
Yeah, we really appreciate that, and just like to let Dennis Martin and his family, who his father passed away with never knowing the truth about his son, and we feel really bad about that, and we just Dennis Martin, you're not forgotten. The Martin family, he's still not forgotten, and we'll see you guys in the next video.